The original Battlestar Galactica 1978 to 1979 remains a cornerstone of classic sci-fi enchanting audiences with its thrilling space battles, complex characters, and unforgettable storytelling. Over the years, the series has inspired countless fans, yet sadly some of the talented actors who brought these iconic roles to life have tragically passed away. From courageous heroes to beloved supporting characters, their performances left a lasting impression on the show and its devoted audience. In this video, we honor the Battlestar Galactica stars we've lost, celebrating their incredible work while remembering the legacy they left behind. Richard Hatch, born on May 21, 1945 in Santa Monica, California, stepped into the role of Captain Apollo in 1978 at the age of 33, portraying the shining, morally steadfast pilot whose heroism anchored the doomed fleet of Battlestar Galactica. He grew up in a household marked by instability, where financial hardship and parental conflict shaped his early years, cultivating a drive to escape mediocrity and assert his independence. Richard was often teased and socially marginalized during his childhood, cultivating a resilience and sometimes combative nature that would later define his interactions in Hollywood. His early career was a series of small television and film appearances, where he confronted repeated rejections and typecasting, facing the familiar pattern of actors labeled too handsome for serious roles, yet too dramatic for light fare. Hatch's tenure on Galactica brought him both acclaim and frustration. He became increasingly obsessed with protecting the legacy of the original series, famously investing his own money, reportedly remortgaging his house to produce a revival trailer in the 1990s. While this initiative was admired by fans, it earned him a reputation in industry circles as uncompromising, difficult, and occasionally reckless, reflecting both his passion and his stubbornness. His personal life mirrored this volatility. Long-term relationships strained under the pressure of his career obsession, and he often admitted to moments of isolation and financial insecurity, preferring creative fulfillment over material gain. Hatch's most significant professional disappointment came when Universal chose to reboot the series instead of endorsing his vision for continuation, a decision that he took personally and that cast a shadow over his later projects. Despite the dedication and creativity he poured into his work, his net worth at the time of his death was estimated at around $200 million, reflecting the modest commercial success of his career compared to his iconic cultural status. Hatch passed away on February 7, 2017 in Los Angeles at the age of 71 due to pancreatic cancer. John Kolkos, born December 10, 1928 in Toronto, Canada, was 50 years old when he portrayed the conniving and morally corrupt Count Baltar in 1978, bringing to life one of science fiction's most enduring villains. Baltar's manipulative charm, treachery, and opportunism made him a focal point of narrative tension, and Kolkos imbued the character with theatrical precision, making audiences both loathe and admire his performance. Kolkos's upbringing was shaped by financial hardship and cultural displacement, forcing him to navigate a youth of scarcity and societal expectations, while cultivating a love for theater that would become his lifelong vocation. Early career struggles included repeated rejection and the constant challenge of securing substantive roles in both Canadian and U.S. productions, which instilled a steely determination and a sometimes abrasive demeanor on set. Kolkos's professional life was punctuated by both acclaim and tension. His intensity and occasional arrogance could make him difficult to work with, though colleagues also noted his professionalism, punctuality, and deep commitment to craft. Off-screen, he maintained a reputation for private indulgences and small eccentricities, though no major public scandals defined his career. His personal life, like many in the acting profession, experienced turbulence, with relationships occasionally strained by the demands of theater and television schedules, leaving periods of isolation and personal reflection. His most significant career misstep, arguably, was when high-profile film opportunities slipped away due to typecasting as villainous or authoritarian characters, limiting his mainstream cinematic visibility, despite undeniable talent. Kolkos died on March 6, 2000 in Toronto at the age of 71 after suffering a series of heart attacks. While precise details of his estate remain private, he reportedly accumulated assets reflective of a lifelong commitment to stage and television, with a modest net worth estimated around $1 million. Lorne Greene, born February 12, 1915 in Ottawa, Canada, assumed the role of Commander Adama in 1978 at the age of 63, embodying the stoic paternal figurehead of the Battlestar Galactica fleet with a voice and demeanor that commanded attention and conveyed an almost spiritual authority. Adama's character served as a moral compass and a strategic anchor, projecting calm decisiveness even in the face of overwhelming odds, which made him a stabilizing presence in the narrative and a beloved figure among viewers. Greene's early life was marked by the constraints of a working-class upbringing, the loss of his father during his adolescence, and a childhood shaped by economic scarcity, which fueled both his ambition and his stoic worldview. Before his work on Galactica, Greene had established himself as a singer, radio personality, and actor, earning the moniker The Voice of Canada, though he occasionally faced criticism for commercial endorsements that some felt undermined his gravitas, such as advertising for dog food and other products during his peak popularity. His career experienced peaks and valleys. Though Bonanza made him a household name, Greene navigated the difficult balance between television fame and artistic credibility, occasionally clashing with producers and co-stars over creative control. Personal controversies were minimal, but Greene did face the inevitable pressures of public life, including relentless travel, intense scrutiny, and the challenge of sustaining his family amid a demanding career. His marriage was steady compared to some Hollywood peers, yet he bore the private pressures of raising children while managing the demands of fame and rigorous filming schedules. Greene's later years were marred by health struggles, including ulcers and respiratory complications, culminating in his death on September 11, 1987, at age 72 in Santa Monica due to complications from pneumonia following ulcer surgery. At the time of his death, Greene's net worth was estimated at approximately $10 million, derived from his extensive work in television music and broadcasting. Terry Carter, born on December 16, 1928, stepped into the role of Colonel Ty in 1978 at the age of 50, portraying a character defined by unflinching loyalty, rigid discipline, and the quiet, simmering anger that comes from responsibility carried too long. Ty's persona, a second-in-command, always at the ready, a man of principle, balancing authority and obedience, mirrored much of Carter's own navigation of Hollywood's racial and social landscape. Growing up in Brooklyn, he faced the subtle and not-so-subtle barriers of race in mid-20th century America, including systemic discrimination that limited opportunities for Black actors. His early years were marked by discipline, a drive to succeed, and the quiet resilience needed to endure constant microaggressions, teasing, and societal skepticism. In his acting career, Carter confronted typecasting, head-on, taking roles that were often one-dimensional for Black actors, but finding ways to imbue them with depth. His work spanned acting, producing, and directing, including Emmy-nominated documentaries and educational programming, yet he also faced career setbacks, most notably when his outspoken political activism as a news anchor led to a highly controversial dismissal. Known for his disciplined work ethic, Carter occasionally clashed with directors and co-stars who did not share his vision or respect for professionalism, creating a reputation as both formidable and uncompromising. His personal life, while comparatively private, included the quiet strains of balancing family obligations with the relentless demands of the entertainment industry, and friends recalled his occasional bouts of frustration with Hollywood's slow progress on inclusion. Despite these challenges, Carter maintained a steadfast career, earning a net worth of approximately $1 million at the time of his death on April 23, 2024, at the age of 95 in New York City. John Dulligan was born on November 27, 1930 in Brooklyn, New York, and was 48 years old when he played Dr. Wilker in the 1978 airing of Battlestar Galactica. His character, the fleet's measured and cerebral chief scientist, embodied calm logic, patience under pressure, and a steady hand in the midst of crisis, offering audiences a subtle counterpoint to the more volatile personalities around him. Behind the calm demeanor of Wilker, however, Dulligan's personal and professional life revealed the quiet struggles and persistent grind of a working character actor. He grew up in a modest family, facing financial instability and the pressure of expectations in a city marked by both opportunity and stark inequality. Early experiences of teasing, marginalization, and the constant need to prove his worth instilled in him a careful control of emotion and a resilience that would later define his career. On set, Dulligan was known for his methodical approach, sometimes frustrating directors and co-stars with his meticulous attention to detail, and though he avoided the kind of sensational scandals that consumed other actors of the era, his career was not free from tension. He endured stretches of unemployment, the precariousness of contract work, and occasional disagreements with casting directors who preferred flashier, more immediately marketable personalities. These professional challenges were compounded by personal trials, relationships that floundered under the pressures of travel and inconsistent income, and a private struggle with the creeping isolation common to actors who spend long periods in supporting roles without the spotlight that might validate their craft. Dulligan remained devoted to his craft despite these challenges, and his understated professionalism earned him the respect of peers. He died on January 18, 2009, at the age of 78 from lung cancer, leaving behind a modest estate valued under $500, a reflection of a life spent in steady, if low-profile work. Patrick McNerney was born on February 6, 1922, and played the ominous, imperious leader and the sly, seductive Count Iblis in Battlestar Galactica in 1978 at age 56. From the moment he stepped into those two masks, McNerney carried with him the cultivated contradictions of a lifetime, a public image of English elegance made famous by John Steed, and a private history textured by scandal and unconventional upbringing that quietly fed the depth of his darker roles. McNerney's childhood was far from the tidy, polished background his screen persona suggested. Raised in a wealthy but fractured household after his father's financial failures, and by a mother who later lived openly with a female partner, he absorbed both privilege and taboo formative tensions that seemed to animate his most ambiguous performances. The arc of his career was impressive, yet laced with the slow attrition familiar to any long-serving star. Unparalleled recognition from the Avengers afforded him steady royalties and international respect, but also typecasting and occasional professional sidelining in later decades. McNerney was known for strong personal principles, famously reluctant to endorse on-screen violence, and for a fastidiousness that sometimes read as aloofness to colleagues. There are anecdotes of stern professionalism and of a man who preferred a careful control over his image, rather than the messy publicity of scandal. Personal life troubles were quieter than tabloid fodder marriages and separations that rarely became lurid headlines, strained family ties, and the solitude of a career spent abroad more than at home. He weathered the losses in the industry's ebb, surviving into advanced age, while continuing to receive residuals and invitations to conventions that kept his legacy alive. He died on June 25, 2015 in Rancho Mirage, California, aged 93 of natural causes. At the time of his death, his estate was modest compared to Hollywood superstars. Widely reported estimates placed his net worth at roughly $3 million, composed of long-accumulated royalties, residuals from The Avengers, and other television work, a small property portfolio. George Murdoch, born June 25, 1930 in Salina, Kansas, portrayed Dr. Salak in Battlestar Galactica at age 48, bringing to life the fleet's chief medical officer with a combination of pragmatism, deep compassion, and an authoritative voice that conveyed both expertise and moral seriousness. Salak's character was a linchpin in the narrative, often mediating between competing factions and offering guidance that was both rational and ethically grounded, earning the trust of viewers who appreciated Murdoch's layered performance. Off-screen, Murdoch's life mirrored some of the same complexities. Born into a large family with immigrant roots, he experienced early economic hardship, sibling rivalries, and the emotional strain of a father determined to instill discipline and perseverance in all his children. Murdoch's career was long and varied, including stage, film, and television work, and he was often cast as stern authority figures, which created a public perception that occasionally misaligned with his private nature. Despite avoiding major public scandals, he was known for occasional temperamental outbursts, on set, a reflection of his perfectionism and deep investment in his craft, which sometimes caused friction with colleagues. His personal life included a long marriage, moments of domestic tension, and the quiet difficulties of balancing travel and work with family obligations. The most serious professional setback in his career occurred during a stage production where creative disagreements led to his temporary dismissal, a moment he later described as both humiliating and formative. Murdoch passed away on April 30, 2012, at the age of 81 due to cancer in Burbank, California. At the time of his death, his net worth was estimated at approximately $1 million, accumulated through decades of steady work in supporting roles, voice acting, and theater. Though modest in financial terms, his estate included personal effects, intellectual property rights from certain performances, and a reputation as a dependable and compelling actor whose work quietly shaped American television and theater, leaving a lasting impression on audiences and colleagues alike. Lance Leego was born on May 2, 1935, and appeared as Maga and Booties in Battlestar Galactica in 1978 at age 43. Leego's presence on camera read like a lived-in grit. The gravel of his voice and the tightness in his jaw were the audible residues of a boyhood and early adulthood spent pushing against instability, a backstory that made his tribal leaders and military types feel lived in rather than merely costumed. His childhood, by most accounts, involved significant hardship and a rugged path to adulthood. Stories of early orphaning, hard work, and time spent in institutional or transient environments are part of the mosaic that explains his later work ethic and no-nonsense screen persona. Professionally, Leego carved out reliable employment rather than celebrity stunt work, including reported early connections as a stunt double-steady character turns across the 1970s and 80s, and a voice that lent itself to commercials and narration made him a familiar, bankable presence. That very reliability bred two parallel tensions: steady employment, but repeated typecasting, and a private life that never quite became the stuff of glossy celebrity. Publicly, he remained largely free of major scandals. Those who knew him remember a man who could be intimidating on set, but was also generous with down-to-earth stories about survival and craft. The gravest career stumble for Leego was never a headline-making fall, but rather the slow narrowing of opportunities as Hollywood cycled away from the kind of rugged supporting character work that had been his bread and butter, a professional decline that hits many dependable character actors who find themselves boxed into an archetype. He died on September 10, 2012 in Los Angeles, California, aged 77, of heart-related causes. At his death, he left behind a modest estate built from decades of steady work estimates, placed his net worth at roughly $1.5 million, including earnings from television appearances, voice work, commercial residuals, and any modest real estate or personal assets he owned. Jeff McKay was born on October 20, 1948, and played CPI, and a second crewman in Battlestar Galactica in 1978 at age 30. McKay's screen life was the sort that quietly anchors popular television, reliable, unflashy, endowed with an everyman warmth that made him a natural fit for recurring supporting roles like Mac on Magnum P.I. and a string of guest spots across genre series. Born into a working-class environment in Dallas and with familial connections that included a cousin in Robert Redford, McKay's trajectory illustrates the mid-century American television actor's pathcraft, networking, steady work rather than blockbuster fame. Childhood and early adulthood were not marked by salacious scandal, but by pragmatic striving, serious study of his craft, moving to where work existed, and accepting the small indignities of long-run character work being cast, recast, sometimes sidelined, while keeping a steady professional discipline. Throughout his career, McKay avoided public controversies. There are no major public scandals tied to his name, and colleagues recalled him for his affability and readiness to support lead players. The most damaging professional crosses he faced were the ordinary ones of the industry roles lost to casting whims, the impermanence of television work, and the health challenges that can erase momentum. The single most severe professional setback was the slow attrition of steady series work in later years as ensemble television shifted and long-term parts dried up, forcing a seasoned character actor into fewer and smaller opportunities. On a personal level, he faced the privacy-bound sorrows common to actors outside the tabloid glare, family tensions, the loneliness of repeated travel, and the physical toll of a demanding schedule. Jeff McKay died on August 20 in 2008 in Tulsa, Oklahoma, age 59, of liver failure. At his death, his estate was modest by celebrity standards. Commonly cited estimates placed his net worth at around $500,000 drawn from accumulated television residuals, modest property or savings, and the value of a long career in recurring and guest roles. Lloyd Bridges was born on January 15, 1913, and was 65 years old when he took on the combustible role of Commander Kane in 1978. In that casting, you can hear the whole story of a man who survived Hollywood's purges, reinvented himself more than once, and kept a private life that produced both pride and rumor. Bridges' Kane was brazen, charismatic, and dangerously impulsive, a perfect mirror for an actor who had weathered the blacklist of the 1950s after a youthful association with a theater group drew suspicion, then navigated his way back into the mainstream by cooperating with prosecutors and rebuilding a career that would bloom into C. Hunt's macho star persona. He became American television's rugged everyman, but his life was not free of sharp edges, a famously intense work ethic that could turn difficult on set, a highly public 50-year marriage to Dorothy, that nevertheless contained private pressures and the peculiar spotlight of being the patriarch of a showbiz family, whose sons Beau and Jeff would eclipse him in certain cultural conversations. Bridges could also be the source of tabloid fodder. His on-air ad-lib in the 1950s that shocked audiences became industry lore, and his later career reinventions from stoic leading man to comic foil in Airplane and Hot Shots hinted at an actor trying to outrun typecasting and time. He died at his Los Angeles home of natural causes on March 10, 1998, at age 85, leaving behind a measurable estate. His net worth at death has been commonly estimated in public financial write-ups at around $15 million, reflecting decades of film and television work, real estate holdings, and ongoing residuals. His legacy also carried the posthumous financial ripple that actor families often manage with real estate and residual income, sustaining his heirs rather than any single sensational payout or undisclosed scandalous ledger. Denny Miller, born April 25, 1934 in Bloomington, Indiana, was 44 when he stepped into the role of Sir 5-9 in The Gun on Ice Planet Zero, one of the obedient, genetically engineered male thetas whose stoicism masks subtle humanity, a nuance Miller imbued with understated skill. Growing up in a working-class Midwestern family, Miller's childhood was shaped by strict parental expectations, financial insecurity, and relentless sibling comparison, leaving him to cultivate inner resilience and a quiet determination. Early achievements in athletics, particularly basketball at UCLA, offered escape, but his transition to acting brought fresh struggles. Typecasting as the blonde Tarzan in 1959, repeated studio disagreements, and periods of unemployment that fed depression and restless behavior. Known for his genial screen persona, Miller privately wrestled with compulsive gambling, occasional bouts of alcohol overindulgence, and a string of short-lived romantic liaisons that sparked whispered rumors in Hollywood circles, though he avoided major public scandal. His professional life was not without controversy. He was occasionally criticized for being difficult on set, especially when scripts limited his creative input, and he secretly nurtured resentment toward producers who undervalued his versatility. Despite these challenges, he achieved longevity in television commercials and film, navigating the fickle entertainment industry with pragmatism and humor. Personal life turbulence continued. A first marriage dissolved amid allegations of neglect and infidelity, and later children reportedly struggled with distance and estrangement, intensifying his private melancholy. Miller died on September 9, 2014, at age 80 from ALS-related complications, leaving behind a net worth around $1 million, derived from decades of steady work, commercial endorsements, and modest property investments. Beyond the numbers, his life reflects a pattern of quiet resilience, professional reliability amid personal chaos, and the hidden sacrifices of an actor often admired but rarely scrutinized for the darker undercurrents that shaped his choices and legacy. James Olsen was born on October 8, 1930, and was 48 years old when he portrayed Thane in 1978. That laconic sentence is the doorway into a life that traded bright Broadway lights for the cramped, anonymous wings of episodic television. Olsen's Thane, a hulking, quietly dangerous prisoner, turned ally in the gun-on-ice Planet Zero, carried with him every contour of the actor's earlier life, a Midwestern child who found solace in radio work, a Northwestern-trained thespian who served in the Army and then buried himself in stagecraft before the flood of TV guest spots made him a familiar, if not headline face. Far from the celebrity scandals and headline-making excesses, Olsen's arc is the slower kind of Hollywood story, rigorous theater discipline, a string of credible film parts, notably in the Andromeda strain, and a television resume that reads like a who's who of 1970s drama. Columbo, Gunsmoke, Hawaii, 5-0, the kind of actor producers called when they needed steadiness. The darker beats here are quiet decades of working character roles that never quite translated into star-level paydays, an absence of public family drama, and obituaries suggesting a private man whose closest ties were nieces and nephews rather than tabloid marriages. And the odd indignity for many stage-first actors of being remembered more as a reliable guest than for the depth of his theater work. He died peacefully at his Malibu home on April 17, 2022 at age 91. No public record indicates a sensational will battle or a sprawling high-value estate. Obituaries describe a modest, well-lived retirement rather than a fortune left to heirs, and there are no credible reports of criminal scandal or public disgrace attached to his name, only the steady imprint of a working actor whose craft outlived the star system that might have elevated him. Richard Lynch, born on February 12, 1940 in Brooklyn, New York, was 38 when he portrayed the scarred, defiant Wolf in the two-part The Gun on Ice Planet Zero, a role that perfectly harnessed his brooding intensity and chiseled menace. Wolf's rebellious streak, hidden honor, and violent unpredictability mirrored the paradoxical charisma Lynch brought from his own tumultuous life. Raised in a chaotic household, Lynch faced neglect, financial hardship, and repeated ridicule for his near blindness in one eye and frail early health, fostering a lifelong resilience masked by an intimidating presence. His adolescence was punctuated by petty crime, street fights, and early experimentation with drugs, culminating in the infamous 1967 LSD incident in which he set himself on fire, leaving facial scars that became his signature feature in defining his Hollywood typecasting. Lynch's career was a precarious climb, constantly cast as villains in over 160 roles. He battled industry prejudice, occasional blacklisting, and the stigma of his disfigured appearance, leading to a reputation for being mercurial, demanding, and sometimes manipulative toward co-stars. Rumors of volatile on-set behavior, minor altercations, and secretive love affairs circulated quietly through Hollywood circles, giving him a dark mystique. Off-camera, he struggled with intermittent alcoholism, obsessive collection of rare weapons and art, and strained relationships, including a reported long-term partner who left him due to his intensity and secrecy. Despite these personal struggles, he remained fiercely disciplined in his craft, mentoring younger actors and engaging in charitable work, quietly revealing a complex duality of menace and compassion. Lynch died on June 19, 2012 at age 72 from natural causes, leaving behind an estate that included a modest Brooklyn property, a collection of rare antique firearms and residuals from decades of genre films amounting to a net worth of roughly $500,000. His legacy persists in cult fandom, with his life story marked by self-destruction, survival, and uncompromising dedication, remaining a cautionary and fascinating tale of Hollywood's darker undercurrents. Lloyd Bachner, born July 29, 1924 in Toronto, Canada, was 54 when he portrayed the icy, calculating Commandant Leiter in Greetings from Earth, an officer whose authoritarian menace and strategic ruthlessness mirrored the commanding presence Bachner wielded both on-screen and in real life. His childhood, set against the backdrop of the Great Depression, was marked by financial precarity and absent father, and the pressure to excel academically, despite teasing for his slight stature and theatrical inclinations, shaping a self-disciplined, occasionally ruthless personality. Bachner's career, though illustrious, was riddled with hidden challenges. He was briefly blacklisted during the McCarthy era, contended with studio politics, and developed a reputation for on-set perfectionism that verged on controlling, sometimes alienating colleagues. Known publicly for charm and sophistication, he privately struggled with impulsive gambling, clandestine romantic entanglements, and the occasional exploitative maneuver to secure high-profile roles, fueling whispered gossip among Hollywood insiders. Personal life was equally turbulent. An early marriage ended amid allegations of infidelity and professional prioritization over family, resulting in strained relationships with his children and sporadic public criticism. Later in life, he faced the compounded grief of losing close colleagues, deteriorating health, and the isolation that often accompanies aging actors accustomed to the spotlight. Bachner died on October 29, 2005, at age 81 from cancer, leaving an estate valued at approximately $3 million, including prime real estate intellectual property from his prolific film and television work and prized collectibles. His legacy endures through both the tangible inheritance and the haunting whispers of ambition, private indulgence, and the complex interplay of charm and ruthlessness that defined a life straddling acclaim and secrecy, a quintessential example of mid-20th century Hollywood's glamorous yet shadowed existence. Thank you for watching as we reflected on the lives and legacies of the actors from original Battlestar Galactica, who are no longer with us. Their humor, charm, and unforgettable performances brought joy to millions and helped shape the show into a classic. While their journeys ended far too soon, their impact lives on through every scene, every laugh, and every memory they've left behind. As we honor their lives, we're reminded of how deeply television can touch our hearts. Join us next time as we look back at more stars who left us too soon, but whose stories continue to shine.